is Tony Seneca Uwaje. I'm program manager at Nkemdilim. Here, that's to get the brand about, look moving forward to business development, personal growth, and I know how to sustainability can be in performance. So I would love to gather all the knowledge.
Okay, great. I think everyone else is from our team, so they're here because they have to be here. Okay, so thank you so much to everyone that is here this morning. I think we have a great group of people who all have quite similar backgrounds, or sort of work on brands from, I guess, different angles, whether it is PR, whether it is product management, whether it is the actual brand identity design, or whether it is from the angle of social. And I think we all probably have the same issues with sort of clients that we work with, right? So the first thing that we're going to do is sort of talk about the top brand challenges that most brands face. And we've sort of, can we go to the next slide? We've sort of divided, sorry that the screen is so small. What we'll do is we'll make those slides available to you guys afterwards. The team is also going to go around with little cards to get your contact details so that we can then send you guys the slides and some more material. And if you want, we'll add you to our mailing list so that you can get some more information about other events, masterclasses, and trainings that we hold. So we'll talk about the creative doesn't really align with the business goals that they have, right? So they may be targeting the wrong target audience, they may have designed the product wrongly, they may have a brand identity that doesn't really match what they're actually going for. Or they have sort of like a brand identity and brand strategy that is kind of like all over the place, where you pretty much have lack of cohesiveness. Another thing that is a big challenge is structure, commitment, and collaboration. So collaboration within the C-suite or the management team, as well as there not being any board oversight. So especially for big organizations, telcos, banks, oil companies, right? What we're seeing is that most boards don't actually have any oversight or input into marketing, and they don't even see the reports that come out of marketing, right? And this is something that is very difficult because customer experience today is so tightly linked to brand strategy and brand marketing as well. Same thing with product design, right? So if your app isn't working well and people are not happy with the customer experience and the customer journey of that app, then you can put as much money into your marketing, you're still going to have a bad experience, right? So the board looks at customer experience, but they don't look at the side that actually talks about the brand strategy and how we actually got to that particular product design. And then there's a lot of the time lack of ownership, right? So marketing sort of is like, yeah, it's the marketing people's job, or it's the agency's job. We have Shion, who is the social media manager, he's in charge of this. But the truth is that Shion can only do so much. He needs the rest of the organization to do many, many things in order for this to work properly. Another key challenge is the brand itself, right? So either they have no brand, they have a weak brand, or a visual-only brand, an incomplete brand, or a brand that isn't properly positioned, inconsistent brand, or inconsistent messaging with the brand, right? And this makes it very, very difficult for anyone to really, sort of like be attracted to the brand or even get engaged in any way. Another thing that we've seen is that ESG, and we'll talk about what that is in more detail, as well as diversity, equity, and inclusion, are just check boxes that sort of exist, but they're not living it, right? So if you say we promote women in our organization and your management team only has one woman or 0 women on it, then are you really promoting women in your organization, right? Live diversity, equity, and inclusion, Or are you more focused on, just saying it, right? Because there's one thing about, you can say a lot of stuff, right? I can say I'm gonna fly to the moon, but if I'm not actively working at my plan to fly to the moon, then that's not gonna happen, right? So it's the same with organizations. And we also see a lack of governance structures around actual, sort of brand management and the brand management of the brand identity. The brand also, could seem outdated or very lackluster. And this happens especially with organizations that have been around for a long time. Usually very traditional organizations that don't really understand the importance of a good brand identity. And I'm sure you've encountered many of those type of brands that are like, oh, it's just a logo, who cares how it looks? And you're like, no, it's more than that. It tells a story, it's your values, it's reflecting your brand story, it's doing so many things. And to them it's like, okay, yeah, you're just talking a lot, but we don't actually see the importance of this. So there's a lot of lack of knowledge in those older and more traditional organizations that you have to also sort of think about how do you address that. Then customer experience, so having lack of data and lack of insights, or just even not doing any focus groups, not testing your customer experience on actual customers, that can be a really big challenge, and you having a lot of friction within your customer experience, right? So if we just look at the banks at the moment, all of them are struggling with uptime, all of them are just generally struggling with their apps and how those apps even work. And a lot of people would rather go and use a fintech app because it's like, okay, this thing works. These guys have thought about what I'm supposed to do here. They don't have 1,000,005 buttons that don't do anything or do rubbish. And that is where customer experience really is going. And in the long term, the banks either need to get with the program and really work on their products, or they will actually lose customers, right? And no matter how much strategy, no matter how much marketing you do, you will simply lose because your customer experience is poor. Then obviously a really big challenge is around data and reporting. So what we're seeing is that a lot of organizations don't actually report properly. So especially the people in the room that said that they're looking for growth and scale, you need to figure out what are the right metrics, what should you be tracking, right? A lot of brands are still hung up on, I have 5 million followers, yeah, great, and no engagement, and 2 likes on your posts. We really don't care about your followers, and you shouldn't either. But to explain that, right, because if at management level that is the metric that is being tracked, then, as the social media manager, as the digital marketing executive, you keep getting hit on the head for not providing more followers, but you're like, yeah, that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to create brand engagement. I'm trying to, tell stories. I'm trying to create content that actually resonates with what it is that this brand stands for. And obviously that also takes time for that engagement to then start, sort of organically growing, especially if we don't really have a budget to promote. Reputation is also one of the key brand challenges. So I think there's a particular red bank that has really damaged their reputation, and they've simply not done any comms. There's not been one sort of public statement to say, we're sorry. Not one public statement to say, we know this is bad. Not one public statement to take responsibility, right? And that is something that brands need to learn, that your reputation can go in just a few minutes, right? And trust can go in just a few minutes. And I think consumers in general, with this, sort of cash crisis, have lost, trust and in the banking system as a whole, right? So you tell me I should deposit all my money and then I can't get it back, even though I need the cash, right? So I actually think it's going to be very counterproductive to what CBN actually wants this to do. I think more people are, once cash is available, are going to put that cash back under the mattress, in their Milo jar or wherever they keep it. Why Milo? I don't know. My grandma used to keep her money there. So, you know, and I think that is reputational damage that we're seeing, right? And that is trust that brands need to rebuild. And there's a lot of comms, a lot of brand building, a lot of brand marketing that has to go around actually achieving that. And then there's technology. A lot of organizations have challenges with their marketing technology stack and interoperability of that stack, how data flows from one system to another, you know, and just also the dependencies, the fact that they can't migrate from one system to a different system simply because, oh, we invested too much money in this and, you know, it's too hard to migrate, the data is going to be lost or things like that. And then the last sort of big challenge that I'm sure everyone here has encountered is budget, right? And this can come from not placing enough importance on brand marketing itself. It can come from, you know, just inadequate resources being allocated or not really understanding why a budget is important, right? So this is one of the areas that I think as a marketing community, we really need to, you know, sort of start talking about more and tackling more because it affects everyone, right? And I think the reason why this works so well in other countries is because they've got sort of standard rates, right? And a lot of people will not go below those standard rates. So unless you go outside of your country, I don't know, India or somewhere else, you're not going to find lower rates than what the market, you know, sort of has. Here it's a little bit different, right? I can build a website for 10 million naira. Someone else can build one for 1 million naira, and there can be another person who will take 20K. Right? And the problem with that is that if as a brand I don't understand the difference between the value that the company that charges 10, 1, or 20K delivers, then we will never have, you know, sort of like an industry benchmark, an industry standard, right? Obviously the big companies will never go with the 20K guy, but they may go with the 1 million guy versus the 10 million guy, right? So the question is there a difference? And there always is, right? Whether this is a service difference, whether there is a difference in how it's actually built, but there always is a difference. So budget sensitivity is another thing that, you know, is a really big challenge. So how do you identify, you know, sort of the biggest brand challenges? As an organization, you should be doing sort of strategic reviews and brand audits so that you understand, is my strategy future fit? Is it fit for purpose? Ensure that you have a baseline, right? Where are you starting from? What do you want to achieve, right? So you talked about growth for your business and scale. You need to understand, what is my baseline? Where am I coming from? And what does growth even mean? Right? How do I define scale? How do I define growth? Is this just money that is added to my bottom line? Is it brand awareness? Is it brand visibility? What exactly is it? And how do I measure that? Scenario planning and also risk analysis, right? So for scenarios like reputation damage, there should be scenarios that people and organizations have gone through, and that they should have a plan to mitigate against those instances. Analyzing the volume and the type of customer support and complaints is also really important. So especially the people who work on product and also the people who work on social, right? I think that the engagement and interaction that you know, sort of see from customer support channels and DMs will tell you what exactly is wrong with your product, what exactly is wrong with your service, what exactly you could do better, and then you need to take that and start iterating and integrating that into your actual product and service. Also looking at all your different customer touch points, right? Sometimes we have multiple customer touch points, but they're all sort of manned by different people, and because of that, the quality of service is different. So really looking into that, looking at what are our competitors doing. I think that's always, you know, really, really important. Tracking consumer behavior, focusing on, you know, sort of also cross-generational patterns. So what we're seeing a lot of the time is that the people who are Gen X are very different from the people who are Gen Z, right? And the people in between also very different. So you have so many different, and this, I think this is actually the first time that there are multiple generations with a lot of disposable cash that can be your potential consumer, right? Which means that you need to figure out who are you, how are you catering to these different groups, and what channels are you using for each of the groups? What kind of messaging are you putting out? Because the truth is that my mom can be a customer of a bank, I can be a customer of the bank, and my son can be a customer of that same bank, right? The products that appeal to each one are different. The decision makers, for example, with my son, he's not the decision maker, right? I'm the decision maker, but the product is for him. So how do you make sure that, first of all, he has brand awareness, right? So with consumer goods, what they do is they go to schools and they're like, well, Vika is here. And then, you know, like the kids come home and even though we're a below household, suddenly they're talking about Bombita, and I'm like, no, not gonna happen. But that is how they basically get those, you know, sort of to push the decision makers, the people with the money, right? If your child refuses to drink the Milo and is like, I like Bombita, at some point you'll be like, okay, fine, I'll buy Bombita for you because, you know, you need something to drink. So really thinking about those things is important as well. And then reviewing your metrics, right? What does your data say, and how are you tracking it? And then asking your stakeholders, right? So not just your consumers, but the employees within the business, vendors that you may liaise with, right? Third-party providers that may be plugged into your product. And really looking at how do they see you. Being clear on the purpose, mission, and vision and values, and letting those really guide your brand is also really, really important. Having a brand strategy in place and continuously evolving that brand strategy, right? So it's important to make sure that you're not just there with a content plan, right? But there's a strategy that guides it, and the strategy is aligned with the actual business goals. And we'll talk a little bit about the brand strategy after this. Having a corporate governance framework in place, right? So a lot of the time, especially in big organizations, there's always that, it's not my responsibility. You know, oh no, it's Bella. And then Bella will say, no, but I sit in strategy, I don't do comms. So Nkemdilim should be overseeing the website. Then I'll say, no, it's Peter, because Peter is the head of IT, so Peter should be in charge of the website, right? And Peter will be like, but I don't know what to put on this website. I can manage the back end, I can make sure it's secure, but I don't know what to put on the website. And then if you make it Peter's job, the website will be very dry and will have very, very, not in real life, but in my scenario, you know, the website will be very dry because he doesn't know what to put on it, right? If you, however, make it my job, I will say, but I don't know how to use the back end of the website, so I can't actually update. So I have the content, but I can't do it. Bella will say, well, I'm strategy, so really and truly, this is the type of stuff that we should have on there. But it's not my job to write, and it's definitely not my job to upload. So whose responsibility is it, right? Then you now come in as an agency or someone who works in an agency, and you're trying to, you know, say, oh, we need to update the website. Have fun chasing, right? Have fun going to Bella's office, then coming to my office, then going to Peter's office, and trying to figure out, like, where is this data, where is the information, who has it, who has authority to authorize. There's no governance framework in place. Then, at the end of the day, the truth is that nobody even has the authority to authorize because it hasn't been defined. So it's important to even be able to point out those type of things and say, you guys need a process, you guys need to have a standard operating procedure for this, how this website gets updated and where the information comes from. You have to carry all the internal stakeholders along to ensure everyone's on the same page, right? So in this scenario, if only Peter is aware and suddenly, you know, you've created content, Peter is like, great, I now have content, I can update it. He updates it, then strategy sees it and is like, what is this? This was not approved. Then come to comms and shout at comms. Comms said, I don't know anything about this. Go and ask the agency.
I realize these things happen.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know, so at the end of the day, right, if you don't have a documented process, you as the agency can get into a lot of trouble, right? Or you have a lot of friction in your own workflow, or you just spend a lot of time going from one office to another instead of doing your actual work. So it's important that, you know, point that out and fix that up front. And that you carry everyone along and bring everyone into the room to say, hey guys, this is the problem. You guys need to talk and decide who's going to be the person who's going to give us content, who's going to approve the content, and the person who's going to upload, right? And then tell us, and then we can proceed. Co-create with your stakeholders, so your customers, partners, employees, competitors, and figure out how you can, sort of create value for your consumer. Upskill your team, your board, your management. A lot of the time, especially when we come in as an agency, there's a lot of education that needs to happen, a lot of knowledge transfer that needs to happen. Because the truth is, you cannot sell anything to anyone who doesn't know that they need it, right? So if I need glasses, and you just say, hey, green glasses are very cool, and you should get a pair of green glasses, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not quite sure it's gonna go with my look, so no, I don't need glasses. Then he comes and he's like, okay, maybe you don't like green, but I've got see-through glasses and they're really good, and they make me see very far. I'm like, yeah, I can kind of see what's on that t-shirt back there. Until the day I put on the glasses. And they are made for me, and I'm like, wow, is this what the world really looks like? Is this what I've been missing out on? That's when I know that I need the glasses, and that's when I'm gonna buy the glasses, right? So before that happens, I'm not going to buy the glasses. So you need to make sure that they understand the value of the glasses. You also need to figure out, like, how do you use your data, your insights, and how do you understand, sort of the metrics that you're tracking? How do you get them to understand the metrics to track, right? So if they're gung-ho on, we want to build followers, but you don't think that that's the right metric to measure, how do you convince them? How do you show them that there are other metrics that are more valuable and that actually align with the business goals and actually show them true engagement? You have to also do some, sort of reputation tracking and like an audit on that, and how do you, sort of create social listening. Listen to your customers, build for them, and build with your customers. I think that's especially for product designers. Do what you say and stand for it. Don't sugarcoat things. Don't create the wrong impression. Focus on an inclusive and diverse workplace that fosters equity and positive culture. So that's more for the employer side. Okay, so here are some other things that you can do. In terms of fundamentals, you can sort of update and optimize your buyer personas and customer profiles so that you actually cater to that cross-generational audience that I was talking about. You can invest in a customer experience strategy and make sure that you have an interconnected customer experience, right? So sometimes, you are like having a conversation with someone and they're like, okay, yeah, sure, yeah, you should buy this thing totally. And then you're like, okay, I'm ready to buy it. Then they're like, okay, please go and talk to Anne because Anne is in charge of the actual sale. And you're like, why have I been talking to you? Why did you tell me to go and talk to Anne the whole time, right? And a lot of this time, this happens when you have a social media manager who actually is maybe external, and the person is like, okay, yeah, hey, you should buy this, you should totally buy this, and then suddenly it's like, okay, so to complete the sale, I'll hand you off, right? And maybe this person has been amazing and really, really great, and then you get handed over to someone on WhatsApp who is just whack, and you're like, wow. You go back and you're like, hello, please, can you just deal with this because this person isn't responding, the person doesn't even know what's going on, or you have a scenario where we've had this whole conversation, I've told you everything that I want, and then you say, here's the website link, go to the website and buy it. No, dude, I came to social media because I didn't want to buy on your website. Why are you sending me to the website, right? So really thinking through that customer experience and thinking through not what's easiest for you, but what's easiest for the customer, right? So putting the customer in the middle is really, really important. And investing in reliable data that can give you actual insights on that customer experience. Doing brand sprints. So this is a really great way of using design thinking to sort of create prototypes that you can test with actual consumers. So if you say, okay, you know what, we don't want Anne to be chatting anymore because Anne is just whack. How do you then build a chatbot that can do that? And how would that look like? Would the customer be happy to be handed over to that instead of Anne? Because at least the chatbot will respond and can, sort of complete that transaction. And just testing that, right? Or would the consumer actually rather be able to complete the entire transaction on social media? And you can do that design that in a brand sprint, and you can, sort of develop MVPs around that, and then build your full-fledged products data, and then also build, sort of campaigns. You can also focus on funnel optimization, which is basically aligning your lead generation, customer acquisition, and retention goals with the different stages of the funnel. So a lot of the time, when you look at brands, they sort of only operate at the top of the funnel, and they don't really have any content or, touch points that focus on the middle and the bottom of the funnel, right? So it's just like, hey, we're here, we're a great brand. Yeah, and then what, right? Tell me why I should buy you. Tell me what your value proposition is. Tell me, and then once I'm bought into that, tell me how much this is going to cost me. Tell me what I'm going to get out of it, right? And if that information is not there, then you're going to lose me as a customer. A lot of the time when you go to websites of companies, you'll see that they, really just cater to the, hey, we're here part, and not to the rest. And it's like, for the rest, you need to contact us, call us. I don't want to call you. I hate calling people, right? I want to read, and I want to fill a form, and I want to check out, and I want to purchase immediately. I don't want to do any of the things that you've asked me to do. So again, it goes back to sort of your customer experience, and you have to sort of constantly test that with different people within these different target groups, because my mom will be very happy to call and have a very long conversation and laugh on the phone and, be like, oh, I spoke to this lady, she was so nice. She's going to, send the things to my house now. I'm like, yeah, I got the same results, just that I did not call. I chatted with them, or I just did the checkout on the site, right? And that's a generational difference, right? And you have to cater to that in your customer experience. You also need to review, sort of your, as I said, support queries, and figure out how you can humanize your brand and personalize the customer experience as much as possible. Also focus on, innovation, and how you can sort of constantly innovate around the customer experience. And then look at how you can also enhance the customer service, right? So how do you make sure that you have solid customer service channels that can actually really help your customers, right? Because sometimes they're customer service channels, and then, like you call your phone company because maybe your line has been debarred or it's just not working, and you're like, hi, this is the problem. They're like, we're so sorry that this is your problem. We will forward this to James, who's the technical guy, and he will look into this. And he will tell you what the problem is, because I'm just a pretty face and I can't tell you what the problem is. I'm just going to tell you, we're really, really sorry. Wow. Why couldn't I talk to James? Because I want to understand what the problem is. I don't want to have to explain this thing to James again, right? And a lot of the time, you then end up explaining over and over again, right? And this is not just with Nigerian brands, this is with global brands, the same problem, right? Where the customer service you receive is dependent on the person that you're speaking to, right? So how can you optimize customer service channels through automation, through having FAQs, by making sure that you have a chatbot maybe that can help, by making sure that your numbers are even available, right? I shouldn't need to hound you down as if I'm a private detective just to find your customer service numbers. And a lot of the global brands are going that route, right? Try and call Amazon. Can't find their number. It's when you figure it out, like you've chatted with them on all the channels, that they will finally be like, okay, please call us, right?
They will ask you, would you want to be called?
Yeah, or they ask you, do you want to be called? But then, sometimes they also don't call. So, yeah. So, other things that you can also do are sort of around data personalization and automating your reporting. So I think it's important that you understand what are the business drivers, right? So this can be done with a survey where you sort of look at really the critical levers within the business, right? So what actually drives this business? What drives the sale? What drives growth? What drives scale? And then looking at metrics like the customer lifetime value, right? So this customer that you're getting, how much value do they bring across their lifetime? And what is also the rate of adoption of new products, right? So sometimes the rate of adoption of new products has to do with the product just being bad, right? Or the rate of adoption of new products has to do with how it's being pushed and marketed, right? Or sometimes it's a combination of both, and then, I mean, just go back, pull the product off the shelf and just, go back to what you're doing. Have a pipeline of growth ideas as well, that's important. What do your customers want? How is your knowledge of their desires being translated into your pipeline of innovation, right? So really taking that feedback and also figuring out how do you create feedback loops, how do you create feedback mechanisms for them to be able to tell you, okay, yeah, we like your shoes, but it would be great if they had a little bit more cushion because now we're getting old and our knees are weak, right? And you have evolved with us, so you can't now be making shoes that are for 18-year-olds, right? So unless you're going to start talking to the 18-year-old customers, but then the design of the shoe is not an 18-year-old shoe, so we're not really quite sure what you're doing, so put more cushion in that shoe, right? And then you can change the shoe, right? And then really sort of figuring out how do you actually do a complete 360 review of your marketing at least once or twice a year in order to understand sort of how your customer base is segmented, understanding the size and profitability of each of these segments, and how that is also changing, right? So what you'll see with a lot of brands, especially brands that sort of have really customers across multiple generations, right? You'll see that the older segment at some point starts, slowing down simply because they're retiring. They don't have that much disposable income anymore, right? So they're either super rich because they've done the right things to get there, or they're now like, yeah, we need to manage, right? And then you have the generation underneath that is now sort of building wealth and getting to the point where they actually have a lot of disposable income and they can do a lot of things with that disposable income. So the question is, how is that shifting, right? And then you have the people who are just coming into the workforce who, they don't earn much, but they're going to be really important to you in 10 years, right? So how do you cater to each of them, and how profitable is each of these groups? And then what products and services address the needs of each of those segments? Another thing to really think about is your brand and marketing talent within the organization. So do you have the right marketing talent, and just looking at that. And then we'll go over to talking about sort of how do you create a brand strategy, roadmap to success. And at FutureSoft, we use this framework that is sort of divided into 3 phases. The first phase focuses on auditing and developing strategies. So here we sort of identify the brand challenges. So all of the things that we've done now is what we do to sort of go through. We audit all of the digital channels, we audit the brand identity, the strategy, the people and the processes, which is why I was talking about governance. And then we do a strategy workshop with the client to really understand the business goals, to understand the target audience, to understand the unique value proposition, to understand the messaging pillars. Sometimes they don't understand them, so we help define them. And then we sort of go into the strategy phase where we start looking at what is required to build a foundation for this brand, right? Sometimes it's, okay, you need to sort of like tear everything down and start all over. You need a new brand identity, you need a new website, you need to update, sort of the social media strategy and the content strategy at large. So we develop all of those strategies and processes, and then if need be, we do brand sprints and prototyping to test what we're saying you should actually be doing, right? Sometimes we just go for it. The second phase is focused on optimization and implementation. So here we sort of optimize everything that hasn't been optimized in the first phase, and we start the actual brand identity development. We start marketing across the different channels and customer touch points, and then we start implementing those strategies, right? To then see what actually happens. So once you've built the website, you've done the social media strategy, you've done all the channel optimization and everything, then you start creating the content, you start pushing out, you start running your ads, you start looking at what this strategy that we've created, is it actually working, right? How is it engaging? And the last phase focuses on monitoring and evaluation. So here we sort of turn data into insights and we track and then we tweak. So it's really important to always make sure that you are tracking and tweaking your strategy, because there's certain things that may not work, right? So sometimes you think like, oh, this is gonna work, and then your customer segment is just like, we're not ready for this. Or you realize that the company actually doesn't have enough budget to sustain this, right? So they may be able to do it for a month or two, but they can't do it for 12 months. And then it becomes very difficult because your strategy falls apart. So then you sort of repeat that cycle and go back, right? And what you should really remember about brand strategy is that it has to be aligned with your business goals or the goals of the organization to ensure that it's being prioritized. It has to cut across visual branding, brand positioning, product, customer experience, and it has to function as a strategic driver of the organization. It has to also be driven by purpose, value, mission, vision, and alignment with the chosen sustainability pillars. And Bella will talk more about the sustainability part of this. It has to have, if it's a really large organization, it needs to have board-level oversight from both a strategy and risk perspective, right? So I'm sure the board of that Red Bank is having emergency meetings to really talk about the reputational damage and the risks that are, that they're encountering. Be seen as a strategic investment, not as a cost center, right? So a lot of the time, marketing is like the first thing that gets scrapped when there's not enough money in the company, simply because it's seen as a cost center and not as a strategic investment. And if you see it like that, then your job is basically gone for all of those people who work in agencies and who are doing social media and digital work. Focus on data-driven decision-making, tracking the right metrics for performance, and be developed through continuous training and capacity development across the board. So making sure that even the people within the organization are continuously trained, because digital is changing like every 5 seconds. Algorithms are changing. What works is changing. Today it's video, tomorrow it's something else. So you really need to, sort of stay on the ball. And then I'll hand over to Bella.
So let's dive deeper into this. So now we're going to be talking about how do you build brands for sustainability. So sustainability is no longer just a buzzword. I'm sure many of us have seen it over and over again. There's still some issues as in what does it even really mean? So we'll try as much as possible to kind of like throw a lot of light on it. So please ask, please put down your questions so we'll treat the questions at the very end. So yeah. A strategic approach to ESG, what you want to do is demonstrate performance as well as build reputation. So before we even go deeper, something I want us all to understand, regardless of what stage or phase of your career you are or life you are, is brand marketing is here to stay. It's not going anywhere. A long time ago, technology has made it possible. A long time ago, the Red Bank, because I bank with them, so I am very, very pained by what's going on. They would have just been saying, oh no, nothing is happening, we're good. After all, they keep winning awards every year. But technology has democratized everything. So somebody standing in front of the bank and seeing them scaling the fence can see automatically what they're doing. No longer was it the case of they tell you what they want to tell you. So brand marketing is really important. And especially those of us in digital marketing agencies and social media managers, it's not for them. It's for everybody. So I just want us to just have that kind of like backdrop as we go into this. So ESG, who does this matter to? It matters to investors, it matters to ESG rating agencies, it matters to NGOs, and it matters to regulators. What kind of content do they want to see? They want to see data and analytics, management of risk, leadership alignment and governance, policies and codes of conduct, external assurance and recognition. And then for building reputation, corporate responsibility, who does this matter to? Everybody. It matters to current and potential employees, it matters to customers, it matters to the media, it matters to the general public. And what content do they want to see? They want to see positive societal impacts, high-level summaries, and feel-good stories. So let's just park this somewhere as we go into the next slide. So what is the strategic approach to ESG? Let's define ESG a bit. ESG simply means environmental, social, and governance. It is a set of standards for measuring a business's impact on society, the environment, and how transparent and accountable it is. My personal favorite definition of ESG is people, processes, planet. If you don't remember anything else, people, processes, planet. An ESG strategy could demonstrate a company's reducing risks, such as adapting manufacturing processes to meet future legislation, or even that they're just treating the employees well. A lot of the time, I find with ESG, people focus on the E. Even in Africa, where we have so many other issues apart from the E. People want to plant trees. Hello, you're planting trees. Do you give your female employees enough maternity leave? You know, so let's break it down. So people, processes, planet, remember that. Okay, I'll go to the next slide just so that we have time to have a conversation after this. So things you should consider when thinking ESG and brand. Number one is culture. And this is especially important for the larger organizations who, because of regulation and compliance, simply have to do certain things. Smaller companies can get away with different things, with certain things, but at a certain level, especially when they are listed, you can't get away with certain things. So if you're a digital marketing agency that is servicing a larger business, you need to understand sustainability and ESG. So you need to entrench sustainability into your core values, so it translates efficiently across the entire organization. Don't say it if you're not doing it, because once again, technology will call you out. And then ESG, the African perspective, there's no need to copy. We can create unique frameworks and approaches for ourselves. Like Nkemdilim and I were talking about it one day, I was like, look, Africa is already very sustainable with certain things. We don't waste a lot. In other parts of the world, your iron stops heating, you toss it. In Nigeria, you know somebody who fixes irons, you might even know how to change the blockhead, or what's that thing called, that might not be getting power. So it's not even in our culture to behave a certain way. So why, as you as an African brand, why would you